Please welcome back to the stage, Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Thanks again. It has been more than 9 months since Russia invaded Ukraine, and as the war enters what is now the winter months, many in the capital of Kiev are without power. The Ukraine president now warning that Russia is preparing further strikes on energy infrastructure. President Zelensky joins us now virtually from an undisclosed location, and we want to thank him so very much for being here. And we want to incorporate all of you into this conversation, so I promise we're going to get to questions in just a little bit with the president. President, thank you so much for joining us.
With pleasure. Thank you so much.
We have so many questions, and we just spent some time with the Treasury Secretary. Typically, this is the question I would ask at the end of the interview, but it's really, I think, the question on everybody's mind, so I'm going to start with it, if you'd indulge me, which is you have been doing heroic work and have defied all of the odds thus far, but I think everybody really wants to know how this ends and how you think it realistically can end. If you were to look at this in a not necessarily perfected world, but in the world that we live in as it is, what happens?
First of all, we are realists. As realists, we know that we are neighbors to the Russian Federation, so that is not an ideal world for you. I was saying that our win cannot bring us an ideal world. We have a war, and we are not the only ones who have the war. This is the biggest war in the European continent in the aftermath of those wars of the last century. And what is used here is not just heavy weapons. There's a lot of torture, a lot of rapes, and unfortunately, if I'm speaking so calmly, it doesn't mean I feel calm about it. And for a long time, also, their continuous missile strikes at our territory. This will end when we achieve a victory or when the Russian Federation decides they want it. It may happen that they will only decide to end the war if they feel they are weak, they are isolated, and they don't have any partners on that. Well, let us have faith that this will end in the next few months.
Let's talk about the cost of this war and how you're going to fight it this winter. On November 15th, the Biden administration submitted a new aid request of $37.7 billion, which, if passed, would bring the total amount that the U.S. Has provided in assistance to $105.5 billion. We're going to be speaking with former Vice President Mike Pence a little bit later, and there has been a sentiment among Republicans who now control the House in the United States from Kevin McCarthy, who've said there should not be a blank check. What do you tell them?
We are absolutely open, and we are thankful for the assistance that the United States have provided. First of all, I'm thankful to the people of the United States. I don't think there is a concept of Republicans or Democrats during the war. There is the people, the society that make the election, elect the representatives, and the people gave them their respect and authority. Likewise, the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian society, who respect freedom and independence, and it's not quite correct to speak about 100 billion as a value of the war for the United States. The value is lives of people, our citizens, first of all, and citizens of some other countries. Our people are fighting for our shared values for freedom and democracy, not just in Ukraine, but in the whole world, because if Ukraine does not stand through this war, the war will spread into other territories and maybe even to other continents. Our people is the biggest value. Tell me how much our people cost. I don't know.
I don't mean to put a cost on lives, because there is none. The reason I ask is because here in the United States, there is a big debate, as you know, about that assistance. There have been articles in the New York Times very recently about anxieties among military personnel in the U.S. that they're not able to provide assistance, frankly, to Taiwan and to other places because so many of those weapons are moving to you. How should they think about that balance, if there is one?
First of all, I heard the end of your conversation with the Secretary of the Treasury, and you said that the situation in Ukraine, let's say, it's how can it can be assessed as a rehearsal of a war or some conflict between China and Taiwan. Excuse me, once again, I would like to say this is not correct. You cannot compare wars, and especially in modern conflicts. Today, there is no full-scale war between China and Taiwan, and I want to greet the world on this occasion, all the nations, all the countries about this, and I generally greet all those on the territory of any country where there is no war. In order to feel this, you have to understand, to be here and feel what the war is. With all my respect to anybody, I just wish everybody to have peace. In Ukraine, since 2014, in every family, in every household, something has happened. Somebody was killed or wounded, or some people had to flee from their homes or lost a job. This is what we have been feeling. It's not somebody's fault, except for the Russian Federation and their aggression. But in order to stop that aggression, we need to do something. It doesn't matter who, which party, which political figure speaks about it. Well, I think that what matters is we need to do everything in order to stop that war.
We're going to be speaking with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel a bit later, and I understand that a delegation from Ukraine has been lobbying Israel for help. Thus far, they have rebuffed Kiev's request for defense weapons, missile defense systems, which has been, I think, what you've been asking for. And the refusal, I think, is related to Jerusalem's attempt to maintain ties with Moscow due to Russia's control of Syrian airspace. What do you tell Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and what's the state of those conversations? Have you had them?
Thank you for asking. I had one conversation with Prime Minister Netanyahu since the moment he became the Prime Minister of Israel again. I mean, returned to this office. What can I say? Of course, we are waiting for support from Israel for our country. We wouldn't want Netanyahu and Legi, those who were before him, we don't want them to continue balancing between Ukraine and Russia in this war. It's just it's not just a misunderstanding, it's a bloody war, especially after hundreds, 550 at this time of Iranian drones against our country and to hit our critical infrastructure. He knows this very well. He knows every detail, and he certainly can help us with air defense systems. There is nothing special here. This is not an attacking weapon against the Russian Federation. So let's not look for a compromise. It's about defending the people. If he just wants to maintain his personal relations with President Putin, then of course he may continue to do what he's been doing. But if he wants to maintain historical relationship between Israel and the Ukrainian people, then I think you have to do everything you can in order to save as many people as possible. That's my personal opinion. And one other thing, one other nuance in answer to your first question, I personally believe that we all, you and me, and the people and the journalists in general should be very careful with those messages that Russian Federation is trying to promote and impose on us. We want to see where that assistance went, how it was spent. We are very open. Please check, please inspect. But as you do this, let's not slow down any procedures. I think if we are partners, we are partners. This is my perspective.
Let me ask you a question about business and businesses. And specifically, there's a company called Roblox. They make video games. My children play these video games. And it's one of the few companies in the US that has maintained allowing those video games to be played in Russia. The CEO of Roblox said that he believed it was important to enable people around the world to stay connected. And I think that part of his thought process, which I'm not here to defend, but I'm very curious what you think, is the idea of keeping some form of a link at all to Russia, not to Russia, the country, but to the people. I'm curious what your perspective is on that.
No matter what I think, those who want to maintain those connections, they will continue to maintain those connections. What I can say is how it is. If we want to make an impact on any aggression, Russia today is the brightest case in point of aggression. We have to demonstrate our joint shared attitude. And in Russia, they are the ones who choose their leaders, the people of Russia. They choose those politicians more than me or you or anyone else in the world. The biggest impact on the Russian President Putin is from the people of Russia. If the connections with other countries continue, if business relations continue, then the people of Russia will feel no discomfort. And for them, all this story about what's happening on the territory of Ukraine will remain some kind of what they call special operation, but not a war which takes away human lives. This is my opinion.
President, I also wanted to ask you about SpaceX and specifically actually Starlink, because that company's CEO, who you know and I think you follow on Twitter, Elon Musk, took to Twitter and he said, Ukraine-Russia peace, redo elections of annexed regions under UN supervision. Russia leaves it that way to the will of the people. Crimea, formerly part of Russia, as it's been since 1783, he says. Water supply to Crimea assured. Ukraine remains neutral. This, he says, is highly likely to be the outcome in the end, just a question of how many die before then. This is somebody who has helped you in certain ways, but I believe you're on the other side of this, of what he said. What do you think?
Looks like we lost the connection. Recording stopped.
Maybe Elon ended the interview. You know, I don't know if they're using Starlink to connect us. Obviously, we're having a minor technical difficulty. I'm told in my little ear that they are trying to get him back and trying to reconnect. So if you would indulge me for just a moment, we're going to try to do that. While we do that, actually, because I don't know how long it's going to take, let me just do this. And we used to do this at this conference many, many years ago. Oh, goodness, we actually are back, so we're not going to even do what I was about to do. Mr. President, can you hear me?
I think, yes, I hear you. Most important is Mr. Musk will hear us. And he did help to restore our communication. We are thankful to him. What can I say in answer to your question? From the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russia, indeed, we had that communication. And personally, I had a line with Elon Musk. What we have lost in this society that got occupied, owing to the internet and the communication, life was maintained, monies were paid, salaries, pensions, money orders, everything. This is very important because at some point Putin it seems that Elon began to change his opinion, and we began to hear all kinds of appeals. I don't know if somebody is making an influence on him or he is making those choices himself. I always say very openly, if you want to understand what Russia has done here, come to Ukraine and you will see this with your own eyes, without any extra words. And after that, you will tell us how to end this war, who started it, and when we can end it.
I want to open up for questions in just a moment. I think that David Miliband and a couple of others that are involved and have been very engaged in this are here, so maybe we can try to get to them. If you have your hand, if you could just raise your hand, we're going to see if we can get to you, and we only have about 5 minutes. But let me ask you about the possibility and the risk of nuclear war. How much is that something you're concerned about? I was speaking with Alex Karp from Palantir, who's visited with you in Ukraine, and it's something he publicly talks about all the time. He thinks a mistake can be made.
I
think a decision of President Putin is not that what he wants to do, but he does something else because he is mistaken. Likewise, we defend ourselves not because we are mistaken. We know what we are doing. I think Putin's aggression was totally forecasted, foreseen. He simply wants to seize Ukraine and primitively destroy our people and fully govern this territory. But we are standing against it and defending ourselves. Can he use nuclear weapons in this course? I cannot tell you, because I think he does not fully control everything, all the processes that are happening in his military.
What do you mean by
Some
that?
people came in and he said he didn't know anything about it. Some people moved in and began to shoot at civilians. He says, that's not my military, it's some people in disguise. It all started with seizure of Crimea, and he kept saying, no, those are not my people. And then in the end, he said, those are my people. So whether he's going to use nuclear weapons or not, it fully does not depend on what we discuss here with you. He may use nuclear weapons at other territories as well. We should not be afraid of this, I think. What we should be afraid of is if Putin takes complete advantage and we give him territory, he'll come into taste of that and he will realize that he goes unpunished. We need to put him back in his place. Again, he is very dependent on the people of Russia, and he wants to remain alive. So I don't think he is going to use nuclear weapons. This is my opinion. But again, I'm saying it's a question of how adequate this person is. And I cannot be responsible for how adequate the president of Russia is.
Mr. President, we have a couple questions in the room I want to try to get to very quickly, and I think there's a microphone up here that's getting to somebody. Go ahead.
Hi, President Zelensky. My name is Olga Yurevna Litvinenko. I am the president and founder of USA for Ukraine, and we're in partnership with the Global Empowerment Mission. I just left Ukraine a little over a month ago, and as a result of the kamikaze drones, it became a little too unsafe to be there. So I want to relay on everything you're saying in the unsafety and everything that's happening in Ukraine. And, you know, if you really want to know what's going on, talk to somebody who's there or visit. But my main question to you is, every time I come back to America, I keep getting asked, what can the private organizations and private businesses do to help Ukraine? They turn to a variety of organizations and they donate money and they try to see how they can donate goods. But what do you need, and in your opinion, what is the best way to truly get exactly what Ukraine needs?
Thank you for your question, Olga. I'm sure you know better than me, or not as good as me, what Ukraine needs most of all. I think the best way is to speak to the platform United 24, run by Ukraine, the Ukrainian government, and that explains what donations are really requested. They work on such areas as infrastructure, medical sphere, energy, and the military. On any of those directions, one can provide help in one or another project.
Mr. President, I know we are out of time, and I want to thank you on behalf of everybody in this room and behalf of the United States and everybody. Please stay safe. We very much appreciate you joining us this morning here in New York, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much.